A stark admission from London has stunned many. For the first time, the UK government confirms that British paratroopers have been operating inside Ukraine, and that one of them has now been killed. The British Ministry of Defence has identified the soldier as Lance Corporal George Hooley, 28 years old, of the Parachute Regiment. His death, described as a tragic accident, marks the first officially acknowledged UK military casualty in the Ukraine war. According to officials, Hooley was observing Ukrainian forces test a new defensive system, far from the front lines and not under hostile fire, the BBC reports. But the significance is unmistakable. This first casualty is a public confirmation of a military presence London had previously kept vague, something defense sources quietly acknowledged to The Telegraph. Prime Minister Keir Starmer expressed condolences, writing that Hooley's service and sacrifice will never be forgotten.
Mr. Speaker, the whole House will join me in sending our deepest sympathy and condolences to the family and loved ones of Lance Corporal George Hooley of the Parachute Regiment, who died yesterday in Ukraine. Lance Corporal Hooley was injured in a tragic accident away from the front lines while observing Ukrainian forces testing a new defensive capability. His life was full of courage and determination. He served our country with honour and distinction around the world in the cause of freedom and democracy, including as part of the small number of British personnel in Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, I place his name on record today to express our gratitude and respect and to affirm that his service will never be forgotten.
For years, London insisted its military role in Ukraine was strictly supportive. Under the British-led Operation Interflex, more than 56,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been trained since 2022. But behind the scenes, the British footprint appears larger. Russian-linked sources, including the Telegram channel Rybar, claim at least 100 British volunteers serve with Ukraine's International Legion. And the Telegraph reports that at least 40 UK citizens have died fighting since the invasion began. To Moscow, Britain's involvement, training troops, supplying weapons, and now losing a soldier on Ukrainian soil is evidence of deeper engagement. Russian officials argue that Western support makes NATO nations de facto participants and warn that foreign troops in Ukraine are legitimate targets. That warning was underscored again today. In Moscow, Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov delivered a blunt message.
As the President has emphasized, we have no intention of fighting with Europe. Such thoughts have never even crossed our minds. But to any hostile actions, including the deployment of European military contingents in Ukraine and the expropriation of Russian assets, we will respond to this, and we are already prepared for this response. We continue, and this is absolutely not subject to any revision, to pursue an independent, sovereign foreign policy course which involves defending our national interests while simultaneously strengthening and being ready to develop diverse, mutually beneficial relationships with all those who are willing to work with us on an equal and respectful basis. The West is not united. This has been further confirmed by recent events when President Trump, in one of his interviews, fundamentally assessed Europe's actions regarding artificial containment. Comprehensive agreements that could have been very well and effectively reached regarding the ongoing Ukrainian settlement process, thereby ensuring the complete and thorough elimination of those very fundamental root causes that are the primary and most significant obstacle on this crucial and challenging path towards a lasting resolution. But Europe is artificially restraining this process, trying in every possible way to egg on the Ukrainian side the so-called leader and members of his regime, so that they do not stop fighting until the last Ukrainian. The truth is they are running out of money, and now even this ideological fervor is being influenced by financial considerations, because apart from robbing the Russian Federation and taking In violation of all conceivable norms of international and commercial law, our gold and foreign currency reserves, they have no other sources left to finance this war. All this is happening even as more and more countries, including a number of EU member states, as well as opposition parties in EU and NATO countries, are recognizing the futility and hopelessness of continuing this policy. But in Europe, the deeply ingrained desire to inflict a significant strategic defeat on Russia completely blinds them. They simply cannot even begin to imagine it, and some influential figures even openly admit in various interviews and private conversations with prominent journalists that they absolutely cannot envision a plausible situation where they would ultimately have to swallow the bitter defeat of their chosen protégé. And they would have to acknowledge and come to terms with the fact that Russia will achieve its legitimate and just goals. Obviously, that's their problem. Well, as they say, they created these problems themselves, they are making them worse themselves, and they themselves are clinging to a completely hopeless course of action.
Lavrov went further, accusing London, Brussels, and much of NATO of taking a destructive stance on Ukraine.
Despite the need to acknowledge the realities, London, the leadership of the European Commission in Brussels, and the majority of NATO and EU member states are taking an openly destructive stance on the Ukrainian issue. Having invested all of their limited political capital in the war against Russia, using Ukrainian citizens as their hands and bodies, they remain in hopeless political blindness, indulging themselves in the illusion that they can somehow defeat our country.
For Britain, the death of Lance Corporal George Hooley is more than a tragedy. It is a public marker of a conflict that has steadily drawn Western nations deeper, step by careful step, with consequences that can no longer remain in the background. Tonight, one soldier's life raises a larger question. If this is the first official British military casualty in Ukraine, will it be the last?
Times of India videos, your daily dose of India and the world. Global news, different views, and sharp analysis.
Pressure of expectation from your fans, your supporters.
That has often served as a backdrop for several Bollywood.
You're not a brute majority anymore if you individually take out their right.
Making sense of global conflicts. Tracking the new emerging world order.
Strike on Israeli military bases.
A multi-pronged.
To stay out of harm's way as Israel started bombing targets across.
Understanding changing alliances in a polarized world. Tune into TOI videos for all this and more. Click on the bell icon to subscribe and never miss an update.